Hey guys, Victoria here, and welcome to the Geeky Sandbox. Today we're going to be reviewing episode 4 of Pretty Little Liars, The Perfectionist. And as always, of course, we have a lot to talk about. If you haven't seen any episodes prior to episode 4 of Pretty Little Liars, The Perfectionist, and maybe you're trying to keep yourself from getting spoiled in regard to Pretty Little Liars, the series, then go ahead and skip this video. But anyways, guys, let's jump into our top 5. Number 5, Emerson is done. Emily and Allison get a divorce. The reason I'm putting this at number 5 is because it wasn't a focal point of the episode or anything like that, but it is something that a few of us seasoned Pretty Little Liars fans were wondering. Throughout this episode, we got glimpses and hints that things weren't going well. Allison was looking at their old photos. She was getting text messages and phone calls from Emily that she was choosing to ignore. Emily's wondering why she's not getting back to her. She gets a manila envelope in the mail, and we all know what that means. And of course, Allison does eventually sign the papers. And it does suck to see Allison sad because I can only imagine how difficult it is to deal with losing someone like that. And though Allison mentions to Mona, like, I knew we weren't going to get back together, but I wanted her to see that I changed, that I could be this trustworthy person. Number 4, Mason decides to really up his game and he blackmails everybody. So Mason just kind of comes in, just starts sitting with the group and manipulating them throughout the entire episode by pretty much saying like, hey, Dylan, I need you to start writing my essays, doing my papers. Ava, I'm pretty sure you can cover this coffee on your tab. I know you have the money. And Caitlin, you and I are going to start talking again, be it friends or whatever, but we're going to start hanging out more. And they're kind of like, no. And he kind of lets them know like, hey, Nolan and I were friends, so I know all of Nolan's secrets. So, if you want them to stay under wraps, I need you guys to do exactly what I say. And it really does suck because I knew that Mason was going to be this kind of character, but it's so interesting that he's kind of laying all the cards out on the table so early on. What an amateur villain. And just a sidebar, in regard to people finding out things, Caitlin does go to Mrs. Hotchkiss and she kind of lets her know like, hey, I really don't feel comfortable getting information on Caitlin and Dylan. They're my friends. And, I do want justice for Nolan, but I can't do this. And of course, Mrs. Hotchkiss straight up asks her, like, are you sure you were with Allison the entire night? And Caitlin says, yes, the entire night. If I find out anything in regard to Nolan, I will let you know. And of course, like I mentioned in last week's recap, Mrs. Hotchkiss was not having that. She made sure she called Dana and she told her, hey, I need you to hit it 10 times harder because Caitlin lied to my face. I don't know exactly what's going on, but I need you to get all the information you can get. Part of me just wishes that Caitlin was a little bit more careful with how she talks to Mrs. Hotchkiss and what she tells her and what she reveals to her. Just because, I don't know, I just feel like Caitlin has a good heart for the most part and she doesn't see what Mrs. Hotchkiss is up to. Number 3, Mona is on to something. Mona and Allison just kind of get together because they're trying to figure out exactly who knows what in regard to Beacon Guard and who knows what in regard to Allison's past and things like that. So Mona digs into the system and she's trying to find all these names of people that have something in common with Allison, and Caitlin comes up and no big surprise there, ambitious student, wanted to go far in life. But the other person that struck Mona's interest was a guy named Ray. I don't have his last name in my head right now, but I think it was Humborg or Humgard or something like that. I could be way off, but his name was Ray, and Mona finds out exactly who he is. And it's interesting because it turns out to be the maintenance guy that's working in the cafeteria, which, that scene that they had together was kind of odd anyway, just because he was very just there all of a sudden and he had lines. So I just assumed that maybe he was involved with something. You could just never tell. But she ends up finding his lair where he has all these newspaper clippings and all this evidence that he's trying to look over. And I wonder what his stake is in all of this. Like, is he trying to find out what really happened with Nolan Hotchkiss? Is he suspicious of Beacon Guard? That's something we'll have to wait to find out. And another thing that kind of alarmed me was he closed the door when she turned around to address him. So I do wonder if he's planted there. Is he even a part of the staff at the university? I have so many questions just about this one weird bit here. But I did think everything happening with Mona on the side was very, very, very interesting. And just a sidebar, all of the secrets are flying out because Allison has a conversation with the guys and she tells them like, hey, believe it or not, you can't just keep these secrets to yourself. That's not how this type of situation works. If you tell your secrets to each other, secrets can bring you closer. That's how my friends and I survived. Your friends become your family. And so some of the characters throughout this episode kind of take that to heart. And one of the side notes I wanted to mention was Dylan tells Andrew what happened with Nolan. And of course, this doesn't end well. Like, we want to believe that he would be happy, that he was truthful with him and things like that. But no one wants to be cheated on. That's not something that you can walk away from feeling like ecstatic. You know what I mean? Andrew was, of course, hurt. He was rightful in leaving and grabbing his things. Like, he just didn't want to be in Dylan's presence anymore. So that's kind of where they are in regard to their relationship. In regard to whether Dylan is going to tell any of the other guys, that's still something we have to see, because I imagine if he would have told Ava, she would have had a very sour reaction just because she was in love with Nolan. Which leads me to my number 2 moment. Caitlin is the rat. Oh my god, guys, she's the rat. And she's not the rat in the way that we thought she was going to be the rat. I thought this whole secret was going to come out, like that she was going to be the rat in regard to, telling Mrs. Hotchkiss things. And I thought when she sat down and talked to Ava that the first thing she was going to say is, Miss Hotchkiss asked me to get information on you. But when she said I was the rat and she didn't say anything else and she paused, I was like, oh man, here we go. So we find out that the reason the whole school found out about Ava's dad and him embezzling money and her entire situation with her parents is because Caitlin somehow found out. I don't want to say she somehow found out. She's very intelligent. She was able to put 2 and 2 together, and she easily figured out who Ava was, what the situation was, and she did that thing where you tell that one person you think isn't going to say something, and that one person tells someone else, and of course it spread like wildfire throughout the entire university. Ava is just floored because Caitlin was they were getting much, much closer. They were becoming good friends, and she was genuinely hurt by this because she's, thinking when she started at Beacon Heights, okay, you know what, like, this will be a new start for me. I can put all my parents' drama behind me because it's just following me everywhere I go. And then, of course, the opposite happened. So, of course, she feels betrayed. She's angry. She's probably feels silly. Like, why would I let myself get close to someone? Why would I trust someone? Especially someone who doesn't understand, who has their life laid out in front of them so perfectly. So I can understand her anger, and I can understand Caitlin's hurt. My God, I thought the secret that she was going to share with her was about her mom and like what's going on with that. But like instead, she told her about her being the rat. And I feel like that was just really eating up at Caitlin inside in regard to Mason knowing, because Nolan knew. Like, Mason knowing is what really drove Caitlin to say something, just because it was getting to that point where Ava knew that she lied to her about something, and we as the audience didn't know why she chose to do that. So this is a very interesting turn of events, and I was genuinely shocked in the sense of I just didn't think that's what she was going to tell her. And number 1, Allison finds Taylor Hotchkiss. The Wizard of Oz book collection that Taylor Hotchkiss left at her old place. Allison's kind of going through them and looking at them, and Mona, kind of says, hey, you're missing a book. Like, there's this whole thing going on with the Wizard of Oz, and Taylor Hotchkiss kind of mapping out the Emerald City's map in regard to her home and things like that. And Allison, picks up the clues and she finds an RV. She kind of course, goes into the open RV, looks around and things like that. Why would this person leave it unlocked? Who knows, but maybe plot point. But Allison goes in an RV, she's snooping around and things like that, and Taylor Hotchkiss actually comes back. Allison turns around, sees her, And Taylor is immediately shocked because God knows what's going through her mind. She either thinks Allison actually killed Nolan, she doesn't want anyone to know she's alive. There are just so many layers as to why she reacted the way she did. So of course, all she does is lock Allison in the RV, and whether she drives off with the RV or takes off, who knows? That's something we'll have to see in the next episode. So let's address our theory from last week that everyone's been talking about and that's been going around the internet. It is safe to say that Allison and Mona are both real characters. Neither one is a figment of the other's imagination, because I know a thing was that we didn't see Mona talk to any of the characters, but they nipped that in the butt real quick. Mona was saying talking to Caitlin in this episode. She interviewed her. She even talked to another faculty member, or excuse me, staff member of Beacon Heights. So that theory is dead and gone. But another theory that I'm wondering is somehow, like, I don't even know if it's a theory, but just more of a feeling that Mrs. Hotchkiss has some kind of devious thing going on. And I'm not quite sure what it is. Claire has something going on, because even when Nolan was alive, it was less of a fear of his mom finding out stuff and more of a fear of just his mother in general. And I don't know exactly why or what, but there's something there with that. Nolan was terrified of his mom, and Taylor is terrified of being found out. Not only because she faked her death, of course, but the last person she wants to know that she's alive is her mom. And go ahead and leave me a comment, guys. What do you think is going on with this whole Ray character that Mona ends up tracking down? And drop your theories for this week's episode down in the comments. If you like this video, go ahead and give me a like rating down below. And of course, if you're new to the channel, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you can get more TV show reviews like this one. And until next time, guys, I'll see you in the next video. Bye!